All right, so this is not the video that I planned to film today, but it's a little bit more important right now. So we are going to talk about some really messed up stuff that is going on in Australia that has to do with kids and dieting, and yeah, let's get into it. Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Carolyn and I am a body positive personal trainer and a health and wellness coach. I am also an ally of the body positivity and fat acceptance movements, an advocate of health at every size and intuitive eating, and I don't believe in child abuse. So I add in that last part because today we are going to be talking about something that's going on in Australia. It is a clinical study that you may have heard of. It's been getting a little bit of press recently, called the Fast Track to Health Study. And while it has a fine sounding name, and even the very beginning of the introduction on their website makes it sound quite positive, it is actually quite horrifying, and I needed to say something about it because we can't allow this study to happen or come to fruition. So basically, this Fast Track to Health study that's going on, what is it? It is a clinical study that is going to be conducted in 2 different hospitals in Australia on children between the ages of 13 and 17. And it is essentially a weight loss study. It is not about health, it is about weight loss. And let me just read to you what it says on the website. I'm gonna kind of go through what the actual website, the fasttracktohealth.com website says, and give you a little bit of my thoughts, my opinions, and my reactions about what it is that we are dealing with here. So, you go to the homepage. It says, welcome to Fast Track to Health in big letters. Welcome to the Fast Track to Health study, known as Fast Track. This is a research study for young people who are well above a healthy weight. So I'm just gonna pause there for a moment because already we are off to a tough start. Assuming that you can be above a healthy weight assumes that there is a measurable healthy weight that is consistent and accurate among all people. I'm guessing that they are basing all of their calculations and measurements and things off of the BMI scale, which I'm going to make a video about this in the future. But essentially the BMI scale is really inaccurate for assessing an individual's health or health risk. And it was never meant to be used for that purpose anyway. It was just meant to map out what at the time in the 1800s was just a representation of body size distributions of white European men. So it was just supposed to show what was accurate at that time. It was never meant to say anything about health or health risk, and it definitely was not meant to be put onto other populations such as women or people of color or indigenous peoples. Yeah, BMI is useless, but it is very commonly used in Western medical systems as a way to determine a person's health and risk of developing diseases, even though it's not accurate at all for doing those things. So then it goes into some details about what Fast Track is about, and I will just read you word for word what is on the website. We will compare the effects of 2 different eating plans on health and well-being in young people. People who take part in Fast Track will follow one of 2 eating plans below. The first one is a modified alternate day fasting plan, and the second is a reduced calorie plan. So both of those raise some red flags for me. First of all, the modified alternate day fasting plan, we'll get into the details of what that means, but my first instinct is to say, okay, you are essentially forcing kids to fast every other day, which pretty much goes against all of their internal eating patterns. These kids are growing, their bodies want to eat every day, and by forcing them to, every other day ignore their hunger cues, that doesn't sound very healthy to me. And then the second one is the reduced calorie plan, which is just your average run-of-the-mill low-calorie diet, it sounds like. And that's problematic for a bunch of reasons, mostly that it is essentially just forced starvation. If you're saying reduced calorie plan, then that's reduced on what the kids are already eating, and assuming that these kids are growing, that they are currently eating in a mostly intuitive way. You know, that's not going to be great for their health, mental health, metabolisms, all that. But before we jump to those conclusions, let's just see what the plans actually entail. So it says a little bit more about what the study will be. It says we will measure weight loss and risk factors for heart disease and diabetes. Okay, fair enough. We will see how acceptable these plans are to young people. That's actually pretty important, that they're taking into account whether or not the participants actually have a good experience or want to be eating in these ways, if it feels acceptable to them. I'm glad that that's something that they're measuring. And then finally, the study runs for 12 months and participation is free of charge. So basically, it is a free 12 months of medically supervised dieting that you can put your kid through. So if you are a parent who has been, convinced that their child's weight is dangerous and that the thing that is of utmost importance is that their child becomes thinner, then I can see how this study would be appealing and possibly be a way to make a parent feel safer about their child's health going forward, which is too bad because we'll get into it. We'll get into why it's bad. Okay, so then it gives even more detail about the way that the study is going to be conducted over time. So it says step 1, everyone will follow and this is in all caps, very low energy diet to kickstart weight loss for the first 4 weeks. Okay, so very low energy for 4 weeks. That's concerning to me. Kids need energy. I don't know if these kids are going to be encouraged to participate in any kind of physical activity, but I know that for anyone who has to be doing any kind of very low energy diet, whether it's to prep for surgery or, they're on an all liquid diet for some reason, or if someone just wants to do a juice cleanse for some reason for a couple days, they're always recommended to not exercise. So hopefully these kids will not be exercising because that could be dangerous. Yeah, so to jumpstart weight loss for the first 4 weeks, this means having 3 to 4 meal replacements like shakes, soups, bars, or a small meal. So, every day for 4 weeks. So they're basically just not eating. Yeah, very low energy. It's pretty self-explanatory. They're not allowed to eat real food in normal quantities or listen to their hunger or honor their hunger. They are just supposed to eat meal replacements. Doesn't say how many calories, but we'll probably get into that later. 2, young people will follow either the modified alternate day fasting plan or the reduced calorie plan with help from the dietitian. So it's 1 month of very low energy and then 11 months of these other plans that we talked about. And then 3, everyone will continue to follow their meal plans with support from a dietitian. Okay, so I mean, the fact that a dietitian is there, that's nice. Sure. Who can participate in Fast Track? Young people age 13 to 17, so you must be a minor, who are well above a healthy weight can take part in Fast Track. So, yeah, I mean, it's for kids. These are children. 13 to 17-year-olds are mostly still growing and developing, and that doesn't change if a kid has a high BMI. You know, they are still maturing. Their bodies are still developing and going through changes. The fact that they have higher than average or a high amount of body fat doesn't change the fact that they're still in children's bodies that need to grow. Okay, so if you click on the link on their website that says I am a health professional, it takes you to another page that gives you more detailed information about the way that the study is going to be conducted and the different diet plans that these kids are going to be participating in. The intro to this page says the Fast Track to Health study is a 12-month study looking at the effect of 2 different dietary patterns on health and well-being, weight loss and risk factors for heart disease and diabetes. The diets being compared in this study are an intermittent fast style dietary pattern called modified alternate day fasting and a standard care reduced calorie plan. Standard care reduced calorie plan. How's that standard care working out for you? Clearly not well, since we know it's not working. At the moment, we do not know which dietary pattern may be most effective at reducing weight and improving cardiometabolic risk factors. We aim to test this. Okay, fair enough. That's what the goal of the study is. But then it says, it may be that both patterns are effective. Finding this out is also important so we can offer more choice and help treat young people with weight concerns in the future. So that's kind of weird because, and that doesn't sound very scientific to me, because they're essentially saying, like, we don't know which one is more effective. They might both be really effective. But what they're not even considering is that, or advertising, is that neither might be effective. What if neither of these approaches is successful in getting the weight loss outcomes that they're looking for? What if neither diet produces any sort of cardiometabolic improvements? And what if both diets end up posing some sort of health risk? And are they even testing for those? They haven't even mentioned if they are screening for eating disorder behavior, if they are testing hormone levels, if they are screening for other kinds of mental or physical disorders that can come from starvation and undernourishment. So apparently the only outcomes could be positive, and we're just trying to figure out which one is the most positive so we can rally behind that intermittent fasting or just low calorie diets. I don't know. That's what it sounds like to me. Okay, so then it gives actual information about what the macronutrient and maybe not macronutrient, but what the energy breakdown is for these. So for the modified alternate day fasting, it says this is a very low energy diet for 3 days per week, approximately 25 to 35% of estimated daily energy needs, or 600 to 700 calories a day. Are you freaking kidding me? 3 days out of the week, these kids are only going to be allowed to eat 600 to 700 calories a day. That is literally half of the already ridiculous 1,200 number that we talk about as being the lowest safe amount of food to eat for women who want to lose weight or whatever. And that number is already bogus because the same number of calories can't be right for everyone, and that's just not enough food. That's not enough food for most people and is not sustainable, which has been shown time and time again through just the fact that people who try to follow that kind of diet plan inevitably fall off the wagon at some point, and it's not a sustainable way of eating. But so they're talking about cutting that number in half to 600 to 700 calories a day for growing, developing children, not even full-grown adults whose bodies aren't in as much flux. And then it says, and a standard healthy diet for 4 days a week. So it doesn't specify how many calories a day it is for those 4 days, which hopefully means that the kids will be allowed to eat to satisfaction. That will probably, in at least some of the participants, mimic binge eating behaviors or overeating behaviors, but in the end that will be a good thing to protect them from starving. That's how the body responds to forced starvation, forced low calorie consumption. If you're not getting enough food 3 days out of the week, on the other 4 days your body's going to compensate for that. But it does say a standard healthy diet, so I wouldn't be surprised if that means that 1,200 calories, if they are monitoring and making sure that they don't go over what their estimated daily energy needs are. So essentially they're getting the bare minimum. What I would guess is that they're getting the bare minimum of what they need 4 days a week just to stay alive, and then 3 days a week they are getting only 600 to 700 calories a day, which is probably a third of what they actually need to thrive. On to the reduced calorie diet. This is a moderately low energy diet with high fiber foods. Okay, nothing wrong with high fiber, but my guess is that it's probably meal replacement fiber. I don't know, we'll see if it says. A dietitian will provide each participant with a meal plan and detailed information to support them to follow their plan. The dietitian will ensure each participant's meal plan is nutritionally adequate for their needs. So I don't know how you can say meal plan is nutritionally adequate for a growing child's needs if the calorie amount, if the energy is reduced below what they need. Do you know what I mean? So already we're talking about it as if energy is non-essential, as if calories are not important, as if they are bad and need to be reduced. That calories are just not as important as other nutrients. So that's problematic. And then, I mean, it is good that the dietitian will be working with them, probably providing supplements. So at the very least they are, getting enough calcium, getting enough iron, that will mitigate the physical risks of eating such a low energy diet. But just the fact that that even needs to happen says that this diet is not healthy, and they're looking for a fast track to health. So if you need to be supplementing to the moon, if you need to be micromanaging what you eat to make sure that you're getting enough nutrients, that's not a healthy diet. That is not a fast track to health. It just isn't. It just isn't. All right, and so then in the inclusion criteria, here's where they actually define what well above a healthy weight means. They say obesity defined as equivalent to adult BMI. So, yep, it's going off of BMI. 30 to 45 kilograms per meter squared. 95th percentile of the CDC growth charts. So, I mean, I already talked about why BMI is so bogus and useless, but here you go. You're on this end of the bell curve. You need to be eating below your needs in order to be healthy, is essentially what they're saying. And there's no possibility that either of these diets is bad. It's just one of them's either better or they're both equally good. Exclusionary criteria. So this is important. So this is talking about who will not be allowed to participate in the study, even if they meet those first two criteria of age and BMI. So secondary obesity, significant intellectual disability as documented by a referring doctor. That's good. Significant medical or psychiatric illness. Hopefully that means if they already show signs of an eating disorder, they won't be allowed to participate, but it doesn't specifically say that yet. Currently undergoing treatment for a clinical eating disorder. So I don't know if that means they are going to screen for eating disorders at the onset. It doesn't say like exclusionary criteria is exhibiting signs of an eating disorder or participating in disordered eating behaviors. It's just if you have already been diagnosed and you are currently in treatment. So if you've already gone through treatment, let's say somebody went through treatment when they were 14 years old and for 6 months they were dealing with that, and now they are 16, a year and a half later, they are not in treatment anymore, but they have a history of eating disorders, sounds like they would still be allowed to participate. That's messed up. Pregnancy or planning to become pregnant, good. Taking medications that have an effect on weight in the short term, excluding metformin, okay. Previous diagnosis of type 2 diabetes. Okay, so that's interesting. So if you have type 2 diabetes, you are not allowed to participate. And I find that interesting just because, like, from their perspective and this kind of, like, a weight stigma perspective, type 2 diabetes is one of those diseases that is, like, highly, that people connect with being overweight. And so I don't know, I would think that if I were running this study, I would want to see if these kinds of diets improve the health of children, type 2 diabetes in children would be something I would want to look at. But I'm glad that these children don't get to participate because it would ultimately be bad for them. I just think that that's weird on the part of the runners of the study, that is like the one thing that they care about, and all these other risk factors they don't seem to, like including a history of eating disorders. Okay, adolescent or parent with poor level of spoken English, that's good. Current enrollment in a weight loss program, and then BMI in excess of 45 kilograms. So I'm not sure why they're putting a cap on it. They don't say anything about that. I think that's interesting as well. Participants are expected to attend 10 to 13 appointments with a parent care at one of the study locations. Okay, so over the course of the year, they're basically supposed to go to like 1 appointment a month. Benefits of participating in the study. What are you going to get out of it? The guidance and support of the participant, or that the participant will receive from the dietitian, may help him or her manage their weight. It is also possible that as a result of following the meal plan and losing weight, the participant's risk factors for heart disease and diabetes will improve. But like, they list those things as benefits, but those are not claims that they can claim, which is the point of the study. They want to be able to make those claims. They're doing this study to like prove that those things can be true. And yet they're using them as like incentive to join. Like that's all messed up and backwards. And that is honestly like how so much of like the weight loss industry works. It's like taking these unsubstantiated claims and saying like, this is how you'll benefit. So they're literally saying you could benefit from like some of the potential outcomes of this study, but they don't even talk about the risks. So that's what I want to get into next. Nowhere on this website does it say anything about the potential risks and dangers of following a plan like this. And that is really concerning because it either means that one, the people who are running this study have not done their background research and are basically going into this blind without understanding the horrible consequences that can come from forcing a child to starve. And then the second possibility, which may be even worse, is that the runners of the study do know about these risks, but they are purposefully hiding them from potential participants and their parents because it would dissuade people from participating in the study, which like, duh, good. That's the point. If someone doesn't think that these risks are worthwhile, then they shouldn't be participating in the study. But if they don't know about the risks, then they can't make that kind of informed consent about it. So what are these risks? That's the last thing I want to talk about here, because that's what's really important here. We know so much about the way that dieting in childhood, that chronic dieting in adulthood messes up your health. Okay, they're talking about low energy, very low energy diets, these super micromanaged and controlled ways of eating, as if we already know that they are healthy. But we don't. In fact, what we know is that they are probably very unhealthy. Like the biggest risk that they are not talking about that is so important is the risk of developing an eating disorder. Dieting in childhood is one of the number one risk factors for developing an eating disorder later in life. And that's not just some like, oh, flippant thing, like whatever, eating disorder is not a big deal. No, anorexia nervosa is the most deadly like psychiatric illness that people get. Like in terms of death rates of people with mental health struggles, people who suffer from anorexia nervosa, which is a mental health condition, not a physical health condition, it has the highest death rate out of any others, out of depression, anxiety, anything. And so by not acknowledging that, not telling parents and potential participants about it, what you're essentially saying is that it is more important for kids to be thin or for kids to be not fat than it is for kids to not develop eating disorders. Like, I don't understand where this thought process comes from. I cannot understand how these priorities get arranged. I do not understand like how you can come to these kinds of conclusions that losing weight and developing an eating disorder, like that risk is not as bad as just like staying fat and not having an eating disorder. What? Eating disorders are serious, but they are not taken seriously, and that is so harmful, and it is harming children. Okay, the second thing that they are not talking about is the fact that people who diet in childhood are much more likely to be chronic dieters in adulthood. So like yo-yo dieting. And with that comes weight cycling, which has been causally linked to things like heart disease and all of these other health conditions that are usually just attributed with being overweight, and the same conditions that they are testing for in this study are negatively impacted by weight cycling. And by starting children out on that path in their teens, you're pretty much guaranteeing that's what's going to happen to them as adults. Instead of just letting them continue going through adolescence and puberty, just growing into the adult bodies they're going to have and learning how to care for those bodies, you're saying, no, your body is wrong. You need to force it to be smaller. Even though we know the biological effect of this dieting is that within the next 5 years, you're probably going to gain that weight back and more. There's no clinical evidence to suggest that weight loss from low-calorie diet plans is sustainable in the long term, but you not being fat is more important than those long-term effects. And so this is what you're going to do right now. It's so messed up. Do you guys see how messed up that is? Do y'all see how messed up that is? It is so messed up. It is ignoring evidence that the way we've been going about things is wrong and backwards, and just digging in our heels and trying to find evidence we can cherry pick to support the beliefs that we already have. And this it just plays into this whole misconception that we have about how weight and health are connected. And I get a lot of kind of negative comments on these videos and like my Instagram posts and stuff about how could you possibly support HAES when like we know that obesity is linked to so many diseases, blah, 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 blah. And like, sure, I can definitely agree with the fact that there is an association between high body weight and certain diseases or certain metabolic conditions. There's an association. But what is the actual like causal factor there? We assume that it is the high body weight itself. And okay, let's go with that. Maybe that is true. So a high body weight, like if you have a high body weight, you are statistically more at risk for developing XYZ disease. And it is because of the body fat itself. Sure. Is there any evidence to suggest that losing that body fat is actually, one, possible, and two, effective in mitigating the risk of developing that disease? I haven't seen any evidence of that. There is no research that shows that weight loss is able to be sustained in a healthy, non-disordered way for more than 2 to 5 years. And there's no evidence that really proves that taking a fat body and making it look like a thin body makes it as healthy as someone who is naturally thin. Okay, that's what we believe is supposed to be true, but there is no scientific evidence to support it. And what ends up actually happening is that people who are in larger bodies, people who have these higher BMIs, who are told by their doctors that they need to lose weight, they try and they try and they try, and their weight fluctuates back and forth, and they starve themselves and they overeat, and all of these extremes that they put their body through ends up increasing their risk for the very diseases that they were trying to avoid developing in the first place. The process of dieting and trying to make a fat body smaller, usually over time, will increase the risk of heart disease, of cancer, of all of these things, because the body is not actually being taken care of. It's being forced to be smaller, which we have not proven will lead to better health. And so then the other whole part of this is we haven't even proven that it is the body fat itself that leads to this association between high weight and disease risk. Okay? We don't know that it is body weight that is doing this. What we do know, though, there's been some studies coming out recently that show that it is actually weight stigma and the societal pressure and stress of living in a larger body that leads to higher risk of heart disease, that leads to higher disease risk. And so what you're doing here is you are placing weight stigma on these kids. You are telling them your body is wrong. You need to lose weight. You're making them go to monthly appointments where they are being judged on their progress and their personal ability to conform to what we assume is a healthy body type. But we have no evidence that this is actually effective, this study is assuming that it's going to be effective and doesn't seem open to the possibility that it won't be effective. And you are increasing a known risk factor for heart disease, which is weight stigma. And so all of this evidence is out there. People talk about it all the time. I am not the first one to say these things. This is not revolutionary. We have had this evidence for a while, and people have been talking about it for a long time. But nobody wants to listen because as a society, we are so invested in this fat is bad, fat is unhealthy, and so because of that, weight loss is good and weight loss is healthy. But I just don't buy it. If you have, studies that can show that long-term weight loss is possible and that it does positively influence health, I would love to see that, because I would love to, also believe that all of this effort that we are putting into weight loss is worthwhile. But I just don't think it is. And every day, every research article I read, every time I am confronted with this, I am just thrust deeper and deeper into the belief that we are going about this backwards. And that, sure, larger bodies may be more likely to develop certain diseases. But that doesn't mean we need to make the bodies smaller. I think it means we just need to treat those bodies better and with more respect. And starting a child's adult life by infusing their minds with weight stigma, by forcing them to go on starvation diets in the name of weight loss, even if it could spell an almost certain eating disorder in the future or weight cycling that could then increase their risk of heart disease, I don't know. I don't think it's a good idea. Any way you slice it, I think this study is irresponsible. I think it is dangerous. And if you know anyone in Australia who has a child in a larger body who may be considering putting them through this study, please reach out to them and urge them not to. If you are a medical professional in Australia and you have any way that you can make your voice heard against this study, do what you can. I'm linking down to a petition that anyone in the world can sign. I've already signed it to put a halt to this study. It's not looking good. This study has already been brought up to an ethics board, and it was essentially given the green light to go. The ethics board decided that it was more important to find a way to make fat children thin than it is to mitigate the risk of eating disorders in children in larger bodies. So there we have it. That's the state of that. And I did just want to pull this up one more time because the bottom of the homepage of the Fast Track website actually does address some of this media attention. And I just wanted to read what they say about it because it just... Okay. Public statement about recent media. There has been some recent media and social media posts regarding the Fast Track to Health study. At all times, the health and mental well-being of those participating in the Fast Track to Health study is our first priority. The trial involves highly experienced clinicians, including pediatricians and dietitians, and is being conducted at the Children's Hospital in Westmead, as well as the Monash Children's Hospital and Monash University in Victoria. There is also highly experienced eating disorder clinical researcher assisting with the trial. We do know that there are an increasing number of young people affected by moderate to severe levels of obesity. 1 in 4 Australian adolescents have overweight and obesity issues, and there are a range of health complications that result from this, including type 2 diabetes, liver disease, high blood pressure, musculoskeletal disorders, and sleep apnea. What the study aims to do is compare different eating plans that have had success with adults. Not in the long term, though. Y'all, come on. Studies never go beyond 2 years. What about 10 years from now? Anyway, it compares a continuous daily energy restriction versus an intermittent energy restriction. Both plans are nutritionally balanced to meet the growing needs of adolescents. No, they're not if the energy is restricted. Just saying. Significant precautions have been taken to identify any risks of harm to any participant during the trial, and appropriate steps are in place to manage and mitigate these risks. I don't believe any of this. My memory card ran out of space. This is clearly a long video with a lot of footage, but I just think there is so much important stuff to say that I'm just going to keep going with it. They put out that public statement basically saying hey, don't worry, the kids are safe because we have all of these doctors and clinicians and things on hand. Which, like, cool, that's good, because if something immediately dangerous starts to happen, if, I don't know, some medical emergency is starting to take place, there's a team there to take care of it. However, just because there are medical doctors there are medical professionals, even eating disorder professionals on the staff of this study, that doesn't change the fact that the trial itself is inherently very risky and dangerous. That doesn't change. It doesn't change the fact that these kids are going on a starvation diet in the name of weight loss, which we know doesn't have a direct correlation with health. We don't know that these diets are even going to result in any sustainable weight loss, because even though the people who are putting this study on, even though in their statement they said that they are basing this off of like methods that have been successful in adults, that's kind of that's not a completely true statement, because yes, low calorie diets will often elicit weight loss, sometimes dramatic weight loss. But what we don't have any evidence to support is whether these diets are sustainable long term, or if that weight gain or if that weight loss is sustainable long term, or if there are any long term health benefits from it. So none of those things are known. The study is making it sound like those things are known, and it's making it sound like the risk is really low, and that they have, that the fact that there's medical professionals involved makes it safer. And I just, maybe it does, maybe it makes it a little bit safer, but I just think the inherent risk of developing eating disorders later in life, of messing up your metabolism, of weight cycling and the associated risks with that, why put kids through that? Why start them out so early? We have so much evidence of adults now who were put on diets when they were young and how that has affected their lives, and it's almost never good. So, in conclusion, this study shouldn't happen. This trial should not go forward. No one, especially a child, should be subjected to this kind of calorie restriction. And I don't really know what to do about it. A couple things that we can do that I already mentioned, you can go sign that petition. You can spread the word about this trial and just try to get as much attention to it as possible so that people see how irresponsible and dangerous it is. And we can continue to support the young people and children in our own lives to make sure that they are never subjected to something like this. All right, everybody, thank you for tuning in. The body image video that I have been promising for a couple weeks now is on its way. That's what I was supposed to film today, but this was just more important. So this is what you are getting. A couple little pieces of news besides that is that I am starting a Patreon. It is not quite ready yet, but as I get deeper and deeper into making content like this, not just on Instagram, but this more long form content on YouTube, I'm feeling like I want to get paid for it. So if you like what I'm putting out there, if you found it educational or inspiring, or you want to just help support me in spreading this message, I would love it if you would consider becoming a patron. I will let you all know first on my Instagram, and then the next time I upload a video when that is available, and I will add links to everything. So that's something exciting to come. That body image video is something exciting to come. And yeah, do it for the kids. Sign that petition. Let's not let diet culture completely destroy another generation of youth. All right, everyone, thank you for watching this video. Please like and subscribe, leave a comment. I don't care if you agree or disagree with me. I do love to hear all perspectives. I just request that you keep it kind. We are here with compassion for each other, no matter our perspectives. So yeah, I would appreciate that, and I will see you in the next video.